Hi, everyone. Welcome to Progress America Unfiltered. I'm Tyler, and I'm here today with Rhett and Linda to talk about the debt ceiling. So let's get straight into it. Rhett, can you tell us what is the debt ceiling and why does this matter?
Oh, for sure, Tyler. So the debt ceiling is currently a $31.4 trillion cap that the Congress has set to finance obligation that the federal government already owes and already approved. So the debt ceilings are not an avenue to commit to new spending, as some lawmakers may make us think through the political games that so and so are playing on Capitol Hill. No, this is literally an avenue for Congress to finance obligations that have already been approved in previous years that the American people rely on. And according to CNN, the debt ceiling is based on the reality that although our government runs budget deficits and the revenue taxes generate is unable to support the growing obligations of the same government. This is not a new concept. The same debt ceiling has literally been modified about 100 times since World War II. So this isn't something that is just like under President Biden, we're seeing like this whole conflict about a debt ceiling. No, this is literally a breathing, living idea that has been part of American politics for like the past 100 years. Janet Yellen has just announced that the Treasury Department will use quote unquote extraordinary measures to keep paying bills, which is expected to continue until early June. But no one really knows what that means because it hasn't happened. But this threat of default is one that we saw before in 2011, and that led in a downgrade in the overall United States credit rating. But of course, the things that are first in line to be hurt by this threat of default would be these super vital programs that the American people rely on, including Social Security, including federal employment, and of course, veterans earn benefits. So these are things that we've seen Republicans go after time and time again. So it's not really surprising that they would want to hurt something that really is at the forefront of what would be affected by not increasing the debt ceiling. But I think we can all say so much for Republican fiscal responsibility. I mean, it's that ongoing theme of what they say is like, we got to be fiscally responsible. Okay, but they're literally not paying back money that they already allocated for, or they already said that they were going to up this debt rate for. So it just doesn't make sense. Of course, it's the same lack of logic that we've seen time and time again. But I really would love to pass it to you, Tyler, and think, you know what? Why are Republicans doing this?
So, one big thing, kind of to piggyback off of what you were saying, Republicans are, the self proclaimed party of fiscal responsibility. We know based on their actual policy ideas that that's the furthest thing from the truth. But Republicans will often falsely say that raising the debt ceiling is just a vote to spend more money, which
Mm.
is actually not true at all. Raising the debt ceiling is about paying the bills that the US has already legally imposed and incurred. Okay. So, it's not saying, oh, we're going to spend more money and do this. It's saying, okay, now we have to pay these bills that we've already imposed. And so, one thing that we need to pay attention to is the new Speaker of the House. I feel like all we do is talk about him every week, but he's really at the center of everything. So, Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy made major concessions with the right wing factions of the Republican Party. And this included an agreement to block increasing the US debt ceiling until major cuts were made to social services that benefit working families, like Social Security and like Medicare, like you were talking about earlier. And the scary part that we really need to be paying attention to is that they built in safeguards to enforce that. So they didn't just say, okay, we'll give you the speakership and then like you promise to do this and then we'll let it go. No, they secured other rule changes to make sure that this same small group has the power to remove McCarthy if he does end up cutting a deal with Democrats or not being as tough on these social programs as Republicans want him to be. They also added a new House rule last week to require an explicit vote to increase U.S. borrowing authority, which basically just eliminates a loophole that Congress used to use to fast track raising the debt ceiling so that we don't go into an economic crisis. So basically, House Republicans have said, no loophole. We're going to like block any progress by any means necessary, even if that means creating economic chaos for the rest of the country. But back to your original question of why is the GOP doing this? We can take it from the horse's mouth. Kevin McCarthy himself has said that the debt ceiling is a test of the GOP's commitment to holding the line on spending and that you can't keep increasing it. But the thing is, you literally can. You can keep increasing it. In my personal theory, everything is made up. We made up money. We make up what the debt ceiling is. And you can actually just continue to increase it. It's been done 78 times in 60 years. It's part of the normal process and functioning of our government. And so for Republicans to be holding it up and acting like this is some monumental deal is really just spectacle, and it's partisanship and political games at its best. And it's important to keep in mind that all of the bad things that Republicans say will happen if the debt ceiling is raised, including, economic destruction and inflation and et cetera, those things will only happen when the debt limit is not increased. If the United States defaults on our debts, all of the worst things that we think could happen would happen, including what nearly happened in 2011, like you mentioned, and including like the downgrading of the United States credit rating. Those are the things that will happen if we don't increase the debt ceiling. So McCarthy is really hammering hard on the idea that the country is going to go bankrupt if we don't change the behavior of mandatory funded programs like Social Security and Medicare, which are costly, but for a good reason, because millions and millions of Americans rely on them. So to kind of shift away from Republicans really quick, because to be honest, I'm literally so sick of talking about them week in and week out, even though it's our job. The White House and Democrats have said that they won't negotiate with Republicans. They're, not negotiating with them, and they're refusing any cuts to Social Security and Medicare. So we'll see how that goes. But I think it's important to remind everyone, like, bottom line, spending cuts are not the best way to bring down the deficit. We know this. Raising taxes on the rich, raising taxes on corporations are the best way to bring down the deficit. So Republicans have a long history of taking the debt limit hostage. We know this, we've talked about this, and what we're not going to do is allow them to do it again this time. So that's my little spiel about the party of fiscal responsibility. But Linda, I really wanted to hear from you on the importance of Social Security and Medicare at the center of all of this, because this will have real implications for American families.
Yeah, so the question of why on earth are Republicans doing this? A big part of the answer is that they hate Social Security. And they also have a problem. That problem is that everybody except for billionaires and the politicians that they own, who include pretty much all current Republican politicians, they're, the billionaires and their politicians are the only ones who hate Social Security. Everybody else loves Social Security, and that includes Republican voters. In particular, the Republican Party's current base of working class whites, they love Social Security. You get numbers upwards of 80% for how many of working class whites want to protect and expand and not cut Social Security. And so they are trying to do this thing that everybody, and their base most of all, absolutely hates. So how do they do it? They want to go behind closed doors and force Democrats to have their fingerprints on the cuts too. Say that, no, this is not Republican cuts. This is just something that the parties got together and did. So why don't you blame everyone equally, right? Or just the Democrats. And so the debt ceiling is their way to do that. What they want to do is attach a secret closed door fast track commission to the debt ceiling so that when the debt ceiling increase is signed into law, this commission is also created. And then the commission is designed to cut Social Security benefits and Medicare benefits in the darkness where the American people can't see what's happening. And then people come out of this commission, politicians with, this is what we agreed to, your benefits are going to get cut, and there's nothing that you can do about it. That's what Republicans want to happen, and unfortunately, as of yesterday, they have an ally in that, which is Senator Joe Manchin. Now, Manchin is the co-sponsor of a bill to create a closed-door commission with Mitt Romney. That bill is called the Trust Act, and it's extremely dangerous, but Manchin has just come out and said that he wants that bill to be attached to the debt ceiling increase. Now, the good news is that, as Tyler was saying, at this point, the White House and every Democrat except for Manchin has been standing strong on this so far, saying that they want a clean debt ceiling increase. And so that's what really needs to continue here. Manchin should be admonished, and every other Democrat from President Biden on down needs to say, no, we do not agree with this. We need a clean debt ceiling increase with absolutely no secret commissions or cuts to Social Security and Medicare attached.
I
Mhm.
totally agree. And I think, something that we jokingly say here a lot at Progress America Unfiltered is like Social Security is sexy. Social Security is important. And I think, I don't know how either of you feel, but I think, especially as these conversations continue, it's going to be really important for Democrats to keep bringing up the sexiness of Social Security and how important it is. And don't let that get lost in the conversation. We know there's going to be some theatrics and crazy things that go down, but I think reminding the American people, like, they are bargaining away your earned benefits. They are trying to bargain away Social Security and Medicare. We can't let that get lost because across partisan lines, Social Security is super supported by the American people. So I totally agree with you, Linda.
Yeah, that's right. And another important thing is that Social Security doesn't even belong anywhere near these debt ceiling negotiations because it doesn't contribute a single penny to the debt or the deficit. It has a $2.7 trillion surplus, and it's fully paid for by the American people's Social Security contributions. We work for these benefits, they're earned. They're not things to be negotiated over or subjected to hostage taking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I could not agree more, Linda. And I think, what we've identified so much is this dissonance that I think exists between the debt ceiling increase and the language around Social Security and what it would really affect, including Social Security, veterans benefits, etc. So I think like really connecting these dots for the American people and just kind of demonstrating that a clean debt ceiling increase will work to protect these benefits that Americans paid in for, such as Social Security, or earned if you're a veteran. So I think that these things are incredibly important, and I'm just so excited that we have an opportunity to set the record straight here.
Absolutely. Set the record straight. And I think, the TLDR for most people, yes, we've hit the debt ceiling. We're not in economic turmoil quite yet. I believe Secretary Yellen said we have until June until the United States would end up defaulting on its debts, which means we have about another 6 months to expect some partisan shenanigans. And I think we're really going to see over the next few months how much Republicans are willing to throw not just the United States economy, but the global economy into chaos just to screw regular people over, please their big donors and do just some really, really unpopular policy moves.
Yeah, I
Tyler, that
think
is, yeah, so accurate. Linda?
No, I think that that's right. I think the fact that we have these months, we're probably going to see a whole lot of just terrible rhetoric from Republicans between now and then. We already had a Republican congressman named Rick Allen caught on film last week saying that he supports raising the retirement age because people keep coming up to him and saying that they want to work longer. So that's the kind of
Wow.
thing that we're already hearing from Republicans and that we're likely to be hearing a lot more of as this gets closer.
And
Yeah,
first of
that
all,
sounds,
who said that? Like, literally, who
yeah,
said that? Because
exactly.
I don't relate. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm at my
incredibly
job now,
so.
but I
Yeah,
don't
I think
relate.
he's only talking to his fellow members of Congress because they certainly never seem to want to retire. But, it's about time that they talk to somebody who works for a living.
Exactly. It's like all these multimillionaires that like just are so out of touch from working people in this country. I mean, that's like a larger issue, of course, about like just like who is representing us in Congress. But of course, we're going to cover all of that and more at Progress America Unfiltered. So, yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure.
I mean, I think Republicans have been saying the quiet part out loud for a really long time now. I mean, I think we all remember Senator Rick Scott from Florida's plan, 11-point plan for the party, which included sunsetting, which means ending Social Security and Medicare. And they've made it pretty clear they're going to try to do this no matter how unpopular it is, no matter how much Americans don't want it. So I think at Progress America Unfiltered, we're going to make sure we're paying attention over these next 6 months and make sure that nothing gets swept under the rug and that we can keep the earned benefits that we deserve.
So, speaking of Rick Scott, he actually had a new gem just yesterday. He says that Social Security and Medicare are like alcoholism and that the first step is admitting that you have a problem. And so we have, apparently, according to Senator Scott, a Social Security and Medicare problem in this country, and we need to break our addiction. So that just really goes to show you how Republicans think of the earned benefits that working people are working so hard for every single day. It's disgusting.
Absolutely. I think the only problem we have is Republicans repeatedly trying to end these extremely important programs. So, well, thank you, Rhett. Thank you, Linda, for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.